You look official that way.
Yeah, it looks
Uh,
like I'm important. I've got a wire there somewhere.
yeah, the little wire. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello,
Whoa,
hello.
hey,
Well,
how
it
you
seems
doing?
like it's been months. It's not been that long, but it seems a long time since all three of us have been on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good to see
So,
you
and here we
all.
are. Well, just
Dave's
the
been
holidays.
traveling the world, right?
Traveling the world.
Yeah, you've been. Actually, you've been back
Well,
for a while,
it,
right?
yeah, that, I mean, it does seem a long time ago when you say that. Yeah. So it was in Australia, but that was October. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So
It's
November went
I
by
got
so fast.
yes. Yeah, it did.
itchy feet though. I want to get out again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
To Australia or just anywhere?
It just anywhere. I like being on
Anywhere.
planes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to like to fly many years ago, but I used to fly quite a lot at one of my previous jobs. But after 9/11, flying became a huge pain. So
Oh,
My
okay.
dad was a
Ah,
pilot
yeah.
for United, so we used to fly a lot, like because you had travel passes, so it was nothing.
yeah,
So a lot
yeah,
of times too, you could just write your own, and you could literally, I kid you not, like my parents used to go to New York every weekend because my dad would fly that flight. My mom would just hop on, and they would go catch a show, and they would go to another state for dinner, literally.
yeah.
Just,
Wow.
Well,
fly
I,
down somewhere fancy and
I mean, both of
stuff.
you guys obviously are old enough to remember. I mean, the time when you could just walk. Anybody could just walk down
Yeah.
to the gate.
Mm.
That was a
Well,
friend
that
of
was the
mine.
thing.
When I lived in Virginia, they'd flown to Italy and they went to the Vatican, and he had like about a 3.5 inch folding Gerber knife that he just had on a sheath in his belt. When he got to the Vatican, they said, "You can't take that in there," and he's like, "Why not?" And they said, "Well, how did you, like he got on the plane, he flew with it, the whole deal, right? It was like no big deal. Everything radically changed. If you never flew before 9/11, you don't know what it was like. I mean, I
Yeah.
flew back when there were still smoking
Mm.
sections on the plane, right? I was really young when that happened, but now it's
And
it's
I'll,
it's a huge
I'll tell
pain
you a good story.
to
I'll
go
tell
through
you a
the
good story
airport.
of mine. Because, of course, my dad's a pilot. So he knew everybody, at the main hub where he would fly through. And because back then, again, it was quite small. And I had a metal cap gun when I was little, because that's cap guns, pink were made out of metal back then. And I wanted to take it with because we were going to our grandparents, and my parents like, you can't bring that on the check on. And I decided to sneak it on anyway. And needless to say, there were still X-ray machines back then. So as the thing went through the X-ray machine, just this perfect silhouette of a gun came up. And luckily the gate people knew my dad, so they kind of looked in and they were like, you know, we can't let you bring that on just by looks. And my dad, of course, boy, I remember my rear end started feeling so warm right about then. Like, oh no, big trouble. I lost my cap gun. And they were like, well, do you want us to hold it? And he's like, no, just get rid of it.
Yeah,
Teach him a
yeah,
lesson kind of thing.
yeah. That's
But I
great.
still, it's funny how things stick in your head. And I must have only been like 6 or 7 when it happened. And I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
That
great.
was a good one. So, yeah.
So how's everyone's carnivore exercise physical goals been going?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I thought the title was good this week, how you're measuring your journey and success, because it it's probably been that's probably changed for me in the last few months, I would guess, out of necessity. In part because, like I mentioned before we came on, my schedule has just been insane for the last 2 months. So I've been doing virtually no, exercise. On rare occasion, am I doing any? And so when I seen I seen what we're going to talk about, how do you measure your success? And I thought, well, That's a good question, because depending on how I measure it, it might be total failure, right? So, so anyway, I've been doing very little, but what has changed for me, though, pretty significantly in the last probably 4 or 5, 6 months, and it's kind of been a transition. Everything about what I do is quite a bit different than it was before, in the sense that I've been at my goal weight for a while now. So I'm not trying to lose weight. Um, I'm not as strict. I'm not as strict on being pretty strict carnivore as what I was. So I've added back in more blueberries, more nuts from time to time, because I was actually continuing to lose weight I didn't want to. I'm not as strict about intermittent fasting, probably, as what I once was. Um, anyway, so those were all my goals for like years, right? I mean, going back 4.5, 5 years, those were all the things that's how I tracked my success. Well, all those things are gone. So it's not like I'm saying, am I still losing 1.5 pounds a week? Am I still, being strict carnivore, 9 out of 10 days? All of that stuff is different. And then when we started coming into like, let's do some workouts. Now, the one thing I had that I was supposed to be doing, I haven't, which all seems like a failure then, right? Like all my things I was tracking, well, I'm not, it's all changed. And so I started thinking about that now. My goal is to practice a little bit of moderation in my diet, to maintain my weight, those types of things. And it's just the way that I have to measure success, I guess, is just different. And if I didn't do that, then it's like, I don't know if I'm explaining what I'm talking about well, but both you guys also at your target weights, right? There's no more about like, I still want to lose another 10 pounds next month, right? That's been gone for months now. So I have to readjust how I look at even my success, right? My success now is maintaining my weight, staying on track, and I'm able to do all of those things. But in the beginning, I didn't really look at that as counting it, right? So the way I measure has to be a little different. And otherwise, it is a kind of a different mindset once you kind of get to that place. At least it has been for me.
Yeah. I think though too, like for me, some of the measuring now is just, how much muscle I'm getting and is it showing?
Yes.
I think my arms are a little bit when I notice, but this last week I've just been so busy. I haven't been doing much, but I've been doing other things anyway, like a lot of yard work and again, trimming the palms. So I've been doing other work and then I've just been doing some like more push-ups and things inside.
Yeah. Well, see, if
rather
I was
than
doing that, I would be able to measure that success or failure
yeah.
as well. But since I've not been, I mean, I've cut a little wood, which is what I'm going to do this evening. As soon as we're off, I've got to go out because I'm
Hey,
just
Mike's in the
behind.
house.
So
Say hello to
Dave,
everybody
how are
here
you?
really quickly.
Have you been on track, or have you been doing a little bit of
That's a good question. I've been off track for the last week, just because things have been a bit hectic getting closer to Christmas. I haven't been as I haven't been at all good with push-ups, but up until this week, I was good. I'd got to 170 a day.
wow.
And the way I'm measuring at the
Wow.
moment is just, what's the difference in the mirror? Like, am I looking like I'm getting a little bit bigger? And, week to week, it feels like there's a bit of a difference. So, I'm happy with that. I haven't got any measuring tapes out or anything like that. It's just, yeah. Do I
I think
feel
that's like a
happier
every
with
6 months
my reflection? Mm.
Yeah.
6-month thing
Sorry, go
maybe
ahead,
for
Chad.
me anyway. No, I was saying that's like an every
Mm.
6-month thing, just to throw that on top of what you were saying anyway, the measuring.
Mm.
I
So
think. Now, how are you breaking them up when you do those push-ups? Are you still doing like what 20, then kind of a rest, and then 20, or you trying to crank them all
I've
out as much as you
I've got to
can?
about 40 or 50 at a time, and then I'll take a
wow.
break of like 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually pretty impressive.
Mm.
But now,
So
so I was just
Go
going to
ahead.
say one thing too about we probably are in some ways a good cross section of the people that might see our video. Chad has been pretty diligent until the last week or so.
Yeah.
Dave is obviously making some serious progress if you're able to do 40 or 50 at a in one shot, and but not quite as maybe consistent as what Chad has been, and I've been doing almost nothing. So that's probably that is
We can beat them up later.
it's a pretty good representation of really the reality of what people are going to go through at different times, right? Where you're going to have times when your schedule just kind of, like mine has just been crazy. And it's not that I couldn't fit those things in or do it if I absolutely just said but just things get hectic, things get going and you get off track and then you don't get started because you just got so much stuff going on. And that's real life, right? But at some point, the goal is to not get stuck there and to pick up and get back in the groove, at some point. So
Yeah. I'm going to let you guys hit this first. This is a good one.
The question from
Annie.
Anne.
Yeah.
Can I have a go at this one first?
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
so
I'm going to
my-
let, because you know more of that. Yeah.
So my downfall was alcohol. What are your thoughts on drinking throughout Carnivore? Well, from my perspective, I'm not a moderator, so it was for me. But I did interview someone the other day that was talking. He was talking about alcohol and how he's not quite really the culprit of a lot of the weight gain and a lot of the issues that we might face if we're not carnivore. Since he went carnivore, cutting out everything, but he still has alcohol, he's been doing okay. And, he doesn't have the issue with beer belly and all that kind of thing, because the beer belly really, he feels, was related to the carbs that he had. And as long as he's strict about not having, something like a beer or something like that, he can drink alcohol, and as long as he keeps, he doesn't go down the road of the munchies, and having the high carb foods, with the beer, then he does okay. But for me personally, it's all or nothing. Moderate.
12-pack or
Chuck,
nothing
did you want to
at
jump
all.
in on that?
Yeah. So actually, I did. I've never drank a lot, but probably the first good number of years, I certainly still drank some, a few times a week, and bad things like Mike's Hard Lemonade, right? Those kind of, it's just full of carbs, full of sugar. I never had an impact with it, with weight necessarily, but again, I was extremely strict carnivore at the time. Outside of that, and I was still dropping weight pretty significantly. Now, I was just telling my wife, I would guess, except for a glass of wine last June, I've not drank anything for probably a year. But mine has to do with gout. So I'm completely off gout medication, but there are certain things that really do cause me some issues. And if I eat just too much crap at some time with a lot of vegetable seed oil, inflammatory stuff, or alcohol, I will begin instantly almost to get some twinges of that gout pain. And so I've just stopped completely. And I'm like you, Dave. I'm not good at moderation in the sense that it was easy for me to drink that 2-3 nights a week or a couple on Saturday, and I wasn't like kicking back a 6-pack or anything, but it does add a lot of calories. If you're stalled, I'd certainly think about cutting that back, but it didn't impact me losing weight. It mostly, my issue is with gout, and I'm extremely careful with that now because I've not taken any medication for well over a year as well. And I'm not looking to have any kind of gout flare up. So But
Yeah, I'm not a drinker.
beer or Mike's Hard Lemonade, that kind of stuff, that is the worst because you're getting the sugar and the alcohol all in one shot. And if you eat that with a bunch of fatty food, obviously your body has to deal with that. So,
See, and I'm not a drinker, so to me, I think it's like Dave said, also will it lead down a path? Will it lead to munchies? Will it lead to I just want a small cup of whatever with my thing. And I think also what it is, if it's like a glass of wine with a dinner once a week, or if it's 3 beers every night,
that's
or
exactly
anything
right.
else, you might not know how it makes you feel post drinking yet, but if you keep doing this carnivore for a year or two, it'd be like my coffee, where you might start noticing it has an effect. Even Dr. Chafee has brought that up. If he drinks, he feels it later. So I think it's just one of those things to test, in another year of doing this, just stop drinking altogether completely for at least a month, and then have a drink and then see if you notice it, and then repeat that in a year. That's how I look at it. We got to be happy. That's why I like with Chuck eating nuts and fruit now. It's like if he's happy doing it and it's working, none of this affects anybody else.
Right. Well, and that's it. It's just a matter of, and that's why I rarely ever drink now. And like I said, just not anything except for one glass of wine within the last year. It's not that I never will again. I do it because I know that it probably has a negative impact on my gout. And that's the same thing with anything else. And so, if you can do it and you don't, it's no negative impact, then you don't mind. I mean, it's not great for you, right? I mean, optimal is probably not to drink any, but if you don't have issues and it doesn't cause you to get off track. The biggest thing about alcohol, which you were talking about munchies, both of you guys, the issue with alcohol is that interesting. I seen a study that talked about alcohol. It's not that alcohol lowers inhibitions so much in the sense that, or you don't realize it actually, the consequences, you just don't care anymore. And that is one of the things about drinking a little bit in the evening, 2 or 3 beers, and you just think, I'd really like, a handful of sugar cookies, and you just eat them, even though right?
Well,
and you wouldn't normally do that. That's the kind of stuff that. But if you don't have issues with that, then and then
on the habit thing, there's a big study and stuff, and I read a lot on habits and stuff like that and how they form. Also, it's like having a snack with a movie. Like even if you sit down at home and watch a movie, then you end up having whatever it is, popcorn or some kind of snack. A lot of that is habitual, purely 100%. And if you literally moved your movie night to a Monday from a Friday, you would break that routine and you wouldn't have it. It's like walking in your kitchen and opening up a pantry cupboard, whether it's checking inventory or you're hungry or not. Sometimes those habits are there. And I think it's often that habit of having something to drink, then something to eat, and then using whatever you're having to wash it down. It's like with wine. What kind of wine is it? Why do you pair wines with certain food? Because they go better. So you want that. If you're having, a red wine, you might want a certain kind of food. So I think there's a lot of that involved too with the drinking side of it.
When I have a steak, I still want red wine.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, well, and I don't like I used to probably, right? But no, that's absolutely right. And it's that way with anything, with smoking, right? It's not just the nicotine part; it's just the habit of every time after you eat, you also light a cigarette, and so that's sometimes the harder part of breaking those types of habits, right? The addiction part lasts for a little bit, the physical part, but it's the habitual just thing that like it always goes together, right? Those things are tied together.
Break a routine.
Yeah, they're tied together, and if you can break those things, then and that's the hardest part in the beginning, even going carnivore or strict keto or anything like that. It's the hardest part is getting to where you say if you're hungry enough to eat a meal, eat a meal. If you're not, don't eat, right? And because you get used to it, you sit down, you get a snack, right? You're bored, you go eat, and sometimes those are the hardest things for people to get past in the beginning.
See, I'm on this push-up thing. I'm still doing burpees. I got to do them slower than I did when I was younger because I can't really, I don't want to do the bouncy kind because form is really important. from the guys that do them a lot. But it is interesting. So I'm curious if Mike ever does burpees, or anything like that too. Just because then you get more motion and you're kind of doing a bit of a squat at the same time. Somebody's never had a Pop-Tart. You're not deprived. You're probably better off.
I've had
Of
enough
course,
for both of
Nicole's
us,
like,
I'm sure, in the
toasted.
past.
Yeah. Nicole tested her ketones.
Well, what were the results?
She's
okay.
clickbaiting our.
Okay,
I'm
yeah.
looking forward. I'm looking forward to seeing
Clickbait.
that video.
I've been checking my ketones a little bit, and I got to do it continuously for a week. I finally did. I can't fast. I think I'm lean enough where it's really hard for me to fast. So I did do one that was, I forgot how long, 50 hours, something like that, 40, 50 hours.
Yeah, okay.
And it took me 2 days of eating 4 pounds of meat each day. I had to eat 4 pounds, and I tried to go the next day. And I was so hungry that I just said, okay, I'm going to eat till I'm full. And it ended up being 4 pounds, like 2 whole chuck roasts. And what's funny is after that, I mean, I was down, but I still don't gain weight. That's the interesting thing. And that's still when I was doing my hiking. That was about a week and a half ago. And I was still doing I've added more elevation into my hiking too.
Yeah. Well, your body will eventually, like Dave, you were never really nearly as big as me and Chad were, but in the past, you get to a certain weight and your body does just get to those set points, right? And so you eat a lot more, but you're not gaining weight. You slow down, you're not really losing weight. And really, I've got to that point now at the weight I am now. I can eat a lot less or a lot, or a lot less or a lot more for a few days, and I really don't gain any. I mean, I might go up a pound or down a pound, but my body's just kind of got to that place now. So if I eat some extra stuff, I mean, the Christmas is coming up, which I know that you guys know, and probably most of the people that are watching. I have no rules on the holidays, so I will. My daughter will make me some sugar cookies. I will eat that kind of stuff for that day, but when I've done those things in the past, now that you've kind of been here for a while, it doesn't, not like I gained 3 pounds from doing that kind of stuff. So as long as I don't do it for a week, right, then, then bad things happen. But otherwise, yeah, I think that your bodies get to where they want to be and they kind of stay there.
To bring up the holidays and eating.
I agree.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with that. Yeah.
You do. You get to that point. You get to that point where you're kind of stabilized out, and it's hard to break that. Like I've actually, because December is my 4-year mark, so I've been doing carnivore now for 4 years, and December was my starting point. So the interesting thing is, you guys kind of know that I test certain foods all the time. And December is kind of like a 1-year point. So I've been testing. So I still can't do eggs. And I haven't bothered testing some stuff again, because if it's like 3 times, I know it's not there. But one thing I did do was test pistachios. So for 3 days, I ate pistachios, a big handful every day, like the kind in the shell, not a big handful of the raw ones, but, then I shell them. And did I suffer? My hike was so painful. My knee joints were so painful. It was really interesting. I really felt it. So to me, I know that there's no way I'll do those again. And not saying that anybody who wants to do them, that's bad. It's just, I noticed the difference. And I've always mentioned I have a bite of my boy's birthday cake, and my boy had his birthday yesterday. So I did have like a teeny, it's not even a slice. It was like part of a slice, because the other part didn't make it because it's so thin. So like 2 bites. But also my daughter makes the cakes, and she doesn't make like sugar laden frosting. They're usually like whipped cream and mascarpone and that kind of stuff. So they're pretty light, but it's not like anything else. But I'll tell you what, the nuts were interesting. The other thing I decided to test for 1 week was throwing cream back in, because I'm not drinking coffee anymore, but I was curious. So I kind of made I just took cream and mixed it up, whipped it up. So it's kind of,
made whipped cream
up, and then freeze it. Cause then it's but I also throw in a ton of collagen, because then it gets kind of gummy. and it's kind of good. And you can see on the end of my nose, there's a little red dot. It's like a little pimple. I shouldn't be saying this live.
From
It's
your
like a little,
cream.
my wife's like, oh, what happened to your nose? And I'm like, I think it was all the cream. Because it's like literally like I can kind of feel it.
I'm
And I
glad
had
I
like
don't
a
have that
couple when I
problem.
was shaving on my neck. And I don't really care to do it, but I'm just really curious to test it because when I quit the coffee, I quit all cream. So it's been like literally almost 2 years since I've had a lot,
Yeah.
but I still have that cheese for that. So it is interesting. So that was kind of my seasonal testing, I guess, was trying the nuts and then trying the cream again. And they're a
Yeah,
no-go
I'm
for
glad I don't have
and
issues with
joint pain,
cream.
even from the cream, because I can feel it.
I have cream. I have a lot of cream because we have homemade whipped cream and we also have homemade ice cream with,
Yeah.
egg and heavy whipping cream. So Dave,
Yeah,
what will you measure your success or failure during the holidays by how well you stay on plan for your eating, or do you deviate at all during the
yeah.
holidays? Do you?
I don't deviate. I don't deviate. Just know what will happen if I deviate. The small deviation is just the end for me. When we're talking about
Oh, okay.
cream, there, I can't do cream. I cream because will not be able to stop eating it, and
Oh, okay.
and then it's just the kind of the snowball effect. Like I'll the cream and not be able to stop the cream, and then it'll be like I'll kind of I could just do one chocolate bar tonight, and then it'll be 2 chocolate bars the next night, and it'll get out of control.
So
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 yeah,
let
I
me
just
ask you,
gotta.
you're just nothing. So let me ask you. So that I find it really interesting because it's one of the things I do have like pretty obsessive compulsive, not compulsive, but addictive kind of personality. Like I just do things like extreme when I do them, and so which is always in the past was one of the problems, obviously with eating. I'm good at abstaining, but not moderating very well. But
Mm.
have you ever? So for me, I actually now have got to the point to where like I will have dark chocolate in the evening. And just I I don't do it every day because I still worry, like, I don't want to get off track. But have you had times when you've kind of deviated and done that and you really just kind of go down the spiral and then you just say, oh yeah, I got to just quit everything? Or is it more of like I've heard people say if I put a carb in my mouth, it's like, it's like the alcoholic who goes and, he can never have one drink again. Right. Or whatever. So have you kind of gone down the spiral and realized there's no way I can do this? Or are you just at the point where you say, I'm not even going to risk it, right? I'm never going to try it. I'm not going to risk it at all. I'm just going to stay
Um,
on track.
so yeah, I mean, I've been down there multiple times, over the
Okay.
last 20 years. I've been low carb or keto so many times, and it's always like going off is always one of those spiraling out of control
Okay.
situations,
Yeah.
like I'll just have the beer, and then I'll just have the snack, and then I'll just have this, and then it's just every day, and it gets worse and worse and worse until it, um,
Right. Right.
but to talk about a recent example, like I was inspired by the Nick Norwitz and Dave Feldman, how they've done the findings that they've just released about this LDL study that they're doing with lean mass hyperresponders, and I was inspired by Nick's N of 1 experiment, where he's been eating Oreo cookies to bring down his LDL. And so I thought, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see because I've also got this thing going with my doctor at the moment where it's like, the LDL's too high. That's it's going to kill you, etc. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to see if I can put a sweet potato in a day and see what that does to my LDL and say to the doctor, well, here you go. You know, it's not about, you know, LDL is dangerous and you need a statin and all this kind of thing. And I tasted that sweet potato. I was just like, no, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. It's just, it was so sweet. It was like my body was just instantly like everything lit up. Like it was almost like flashing lights and kind of, I was like, no, 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 I can't do this at all.
And it tasted
So,
good.
yeah.
And it tasted
And
good.
yeah. And again, my knee is sore again.
Oh,
You know, like, so I had that experience with bok choy a month and a half ago or whatever, when I thought I'd put that back in and see what happened. And yeah, same thing with the sweet potato. My knees sore again. So it's just like, no,
Yeah.
I'm staying away from this stuff.
yeah.
Mm.
And
I think
that's probably, in some ways, it's probably, you know, if there's any doubt, well, if it bothers you, obviously you don't want to eat it. But the second thing is, if you think that it's going to derail you, yeah, I mean, absolutely, because it is true, and this is why I limit myself mostly to holidays or pretty rare special occasions, because I just suck at moderation, right? So when we were out at my daughter's for Thanksgiving, we were out in Oklahoma, and you know, one of my other daughters brought down, because my wife used to make me giant sugar cookies at Christmas time, you know, with icing, all homemade. My daughter brought those down. Now I know that this is the day I'm going to eat this, right? But sometimes it's easy. I'll have like one, or I'll have something on that holiday and it's good. But I'm so bad at moderation. It's like once I eat the one, they taste so good, right? I mean, I probably ate 6 that day, right? Throughout the day, I've eaten 6 sugar cookies instead of just eating one sugar. And the only way that I can keep, you know, if I tried to do that throughout the week, or even, you know, want to say I'm just going to do this on occasion, I just can't. If they were just laying around all the time, it's just I can't do it. And so that's kind of the guardrails for me. Now, you know, again, my wife, I mean, she could like eat one, you know, one a week, or pick up a donut. It doesn't bother her. She's like, she's good at that, but not me. I'm just terrible. So I do it on those days, but I just have to have the hard, fast rule. Outside of those times, you just can't, right? Because, you know, I'd weigh
it'll be
275 again.
interesting how you come across this in 2 years. I'm really curious, because I used to be like that, where, like I said, especially anything in a bag would be gone, the whole bag. Like this time, like even like that couple, like the cake thing, like I have no, it is weird. Like over the years, like I found now that I can just, there's no
Yeah,
way I want more.
you can
You know what I
just
mean?
do.
I don't know if there's that point, because the first year I knew that, like when I would try something, I knew I had to stay away from a few things. But like even that first year, I was like, oh wow, that's, you know, good. And I could force myself to do it, but it was like, that's what it was. That you had to tell yourself no. And
Right.
now it's like this internal thing that's just like, you know,
Well,
these are not the
interestingly,
specs you're looking for. You know what I
it
mean?
doesn't.
Kind of thing. Like the
It
force just,
Yeah,
somebody's pushing you away from it.
it's not hard for me not to eat it initially. Like, you know, we have food after church almost every week, right? And there's always pies, there's always cookies. It never bothers me not to eat those things. Like, I don't really have cravings and have to really force myself not to eat them. The issue I have is if I eat them, that's when it's like, oh, that was really good. And it's not that it always happens, because, you know, there's times when it doesn't, but I certainly am more likely to have 2 or 3 if they happen to be there, as opposed to 1 if I'm doing it right,
I'm gonna,
which is and you know, I still, it's some measure, although I started, you know, I'm when I first started doing keto, it's probably closing in on 4.5, 5 years ago. And then of course, you know, I had 2 years in there where I was totally off the rails. But you know, I still never want to go back. So I'm still pretty careful. And I just know I'm bad at moderation, right? And so it's just one of those deals. And in some way it's still just you know, you're right, Chad, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
It
At some
changed for
point
me.
you feel more confident in the fact that no, I'm going to be here for
I
good,
think
and you allow
too,
yourself a little more latitude, maybe.
I think there's something inside. Honestly, there's also something from within that just your body is just like new, kind of thing on it.
Yeah.
And this quitting sugar thing, I'm going to hit these two in a row here on this. So this, I think if you can quit sugar, you can quit anything, sugar and any drug. Yeah. And obviously we know sugar is extremely addicting along like with carbs and stuff. And then I think this one that ties with it, I try to have cheat days, but they end up being a lot longer, so I don't do it. Is the problem with that addiction is that until you're truly over it, like I think it was last time when I was on with you, Dave was talking about the flavored waters, how they trigger like me wanting more as I get rid of the last ones, and then you want more. And also the same thing with some of this stuff, like, and it's been brought up by other people, but casomorphine in cheese. Casomorphine is morphine. It's a form of morphine, so it's very addictive, and that's why so many people eat so much cheese, and I think have so many problems with the addictiveness of cheese. Not only that, if you Google this, that it's actually an addictive substance by nature, so that the babies in nature will keep drinking more milk than technically they almost should to get big and strong really quickly. And that's been in a few different, journals. So I think too, not only the cheese, the sugar, the carbs, I think it's all of this stuff for so many people because it's again, it's that ghrelin leptin response. Are you full? No. Okay. Feed me more. Okay. No, I need a trigger. You got to eat. Am I full? No. And these new hyperpalate foods that kind of have figured out how to bypass that ghrelin leptin response loop. And then we also have that in nature with things like the casomorphine and cheese and sugar being out of the norm. I think some of this stuff is just. Do you guys remember Gary Larson, the comedian who would always draw the funny comics of all the, I don't know if you ever, the Far Side comics?
Yeah,
He
I
had
love
this
the
one that
Far
was the
Side.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had this one. It was like 4 little frames, and it's like nature's way of saying stay away. And it was like a porcupine and like, something like a tiger. Then there was a guy with like weird little swimmy, floaty, and just weird looking guy in a trench coat, and it was like, I think sometimes nature's view of staying away from some of these foods are just, what really are they for? Sugar. What is it really for? You can't live on it. It's just to sweeten things up to make us eat more. Cheese isn't really, even though it's natural, it's not really, because in nature you don't just make cheese. So it actually is a processed food. Not that it's wrong, not that anybody wants to have some, because I do it for the no gallbladder in a certain amount for a reason. But I think all those addictions are something that we all have to look at if we're having problems. Key point, if we're having problems.
Yeah, and that's the part about food, especially with food today, is the fact that it's not just the sugar part. It's not just the physical addiction of sugar and the dopamine and those types of things, right? It's the issue that it tastes good, right? I mean, if the sugar cookies my daughter's going to make at Christmas time tasted like crap, I have no problem abstaining from them, right? Like, it's the fact that they taste really good. Plus, it's why I've not had a piece of pizza for a long time. I don't know how long, but it's been a long time. I love pizza. It's just, it not exactly optimal, right? In fact, it's way below optimal. It's just not good.
Yeah.
But it tastes great. And if I was to have one piece, it's like I don't want to just have one piece. I want to have one pizza, right? I want 3 slices. So, and when you're eating carbs, if I'm eating just carnivore food, beef, steak, I'll eat that and I will just be stuffed. But it just doesn't happen with sugar. The body doesn't turn off the appetite the way that it does when you're eating fat and protein. So you can just keep stuffing it in.
Yeah. I think it's just this really makes you understand that the kind of the design of the food is just so different. Like the fundamentals of the types of the macros is just so different. You know,
Yeah.
fat and protein is really okay. Well, the fundamental purpose is satiation and nutrition. The fundamental purpose of carbohydrate is eat more of me. You know, it's like, okay, keep going, keep going, keep going,
Yeah.
you know. So I was talking to Dr. Hampton, and I mentioned, you know, Pringles, the Pringles slogan, you know, once you pop, you can't stop. You know, that sounds much better than your leptin will never know. You know,
Yeah.
it's like uh, carbs are just the design seems to be, come on, eat more.
Right. And that's
Mm.
not. It's probably for a few reasons, but again, for other animals, there's a reason for that. They're not coming across those types of carbohydrates all the time, and they serve a purpose, right? Because they get fat from those types of things. I mean, bears get fat because they're eating that kind of stuff, but they need to do that. The other thing, I think that in lots of ways, the body wants what it wants as far as nutrients go. And if you're giving it, it doesn't care how many calories you've eaten. So you eat 2,000 calories and there's no nutrients there, body doesn't give a crap about that. But the body wants some nutrients, right? And the body knows what it wants. And so if you're just giving it calories that it's turning into glucose and then shoving it all away with insulin, but it's saying, no, I want some more of this and this. So just keep on eating, right? Because I'm not getting what I want. It just doesn't turn it off. And so all of those things play in. And now we're at a point to where I don't have to walk around and look for a beehive to get some honey, right? Or go scour a tree
Yeah.
or go pick some fruit. I just go to the refrigerator. Well, not mine because we don't keep a lot of that stuff, but it's just easy. And everywhere you go, it's just what it is, right? So it's hyper palatable. You're not getting the nutrients that you really need. Your body doesn't turn on the satiated signal, and we just stuff it away, which is why it's so easy to to weigh 200-300 pounds today.
I'm gonna hit something really quick. This thing, how you when you get to a normal weight and maintaining. I've heard a couple other carnivores say this, and I think it's just their opinion. One of them was saying how a lot of these people will get to their kind of goal weight, then they'll go back up like 10 or 20 pounds, then kind of stay there. And that she'd never really met anybody that like got to that low goal weight and stayed there. And I did comment, it doesn't really matter who it is. It's just, their kind of view. But I'm like, well, I'm one of them because when I hit that weight, I never went back up. You know what I mean? It's easy for me to maintain once I got back down. And I do think some of the people that have gone back up are because they're like, okay, I got that goal. Now I can relax on what I'm doing. But for me, if I got there, even though it took me a year, I was comfortable getting there. So I saw no reason to then throw in the carnivore pizzas and the carnivore nachos and all the cheese again and kind of get lax on what I was doing. And I just don't want to. Like the nut test, I don't want to eat them because I don't feel good.
Yeah,
I'm just curious your guys' thoughts on that.
I actually the lightest I got was I'm really bad about eating when my wife's not here. So one of our daughters had a baby. My wife was gone. Actually, turned out to be gone probably for almost 2 weeks. I got down to about 150 and some, 150.8 or 151, and I wanted to be at 155. And I'd been there for a while. I got up to 153. It really bothers me a lot. Even if I step on the scale and I weigh 155, it's like, okay, I don't. So I don't want to get. I don't want to be over that, right? I can be at 155, and I weigh about 3 or 4 pounds more than my lowest. But I didn't really want to get down to 150.
But yeah, but that's not 20 pounds more though.
No. I it's a few pounds, and I have no desire to. I mean, I'm pretty diligent still about that kind of stuff. I think though it is pretty natural. I mean, I have done this to some measure. Some people do loosen up, right? The what they would normally be eating, And I think that's perfectly fine as long as you understand, you go too loose and you're going to end up gaining those 20 pounds back, right? For me, I probably really could still lose another 8 or 10 pounds. I'd be
Yeah.
really light, but I'm not very tall, and I still have more than enough body fat. I don't want to lose any more, but I sure don't want to gain back 20 pounds. I mean, so I guess I've been at this weight for, I mean, not nearly as long as you have, Chad, obviously, but I would guess going on about 6 months, right? And I've been under 165 for a long time. The last bit took me a while, and but I don't know. I think, if people want to gain back the weight and they're still eating normal, but for me, I don't want to, right? It's way more than what I went away to gain back 20 pounds.
Yeah. So on this question, I eat mostly hamburger. I eat the rendered fat from it. How much butter should I eat for 2 pounds of hamburger? I'm thinking I'm overdoing the protein. If it's 72.28, I would probably say none. If it's 93.7, I would say there might be some. Also, I think it's like Sean Baker did kind of high fat and he said he didn't like it and he just switched back for kind of that neck injury. If you keep up on him a little bit and he's back. Like I ate a lot of butter in the beginning when I was losing the most weight. So I think this also pertains to where are you in your journey? I find now I can't do too much butter. Like I actually had 3 hamburgers today and I literally had probably like a tablespoon and a half of butter with them because I did them on the grill. So everything ran out and I don't have the render fat. And they're like those pre-frozen 85-15 burgers. So
Yeah,
to
which is
me,
pretty low fat, really.
yeah. So I wanted a little bit more. And it's so to me, it's kind of like how much butter would depend on how you feel. 100%
Yeah.
on how you feel, because if it's 80-20, you might not need any more if you're pouring it back over. But if you feel like you're not getting satiated, and I think that's what I think part of the signal is for wanting more fat is I ate and I don't have those, I can tell when I have too much protein, whether I'm thirsty and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
not feeling good full.
And my wife often puts butter on hamburgers, and she sears our steaks in butter. And she will pour usually the butter off onto her steaks. I almost never do that. But for us, I think you get to a certain place, and it does depend on where you are, kind of in your journey, right? For me, I just
Mhm.
do all that stuff by taste now. Like, do I
Yeah.
put more salt on my food sometimes? Yeah. Do I put less sometimes? Sure. Do I put butter on my stuff? Rarely. I mean, my wife does all the time. So I think once your body kind of gets sorted out, but that doesn't happen to be in the beginning. It happens eventually when your body gets sorted out. I eat the taste now, right? If I want a little more butter, I'll put some on, and if I don't, but we're using 70-30 ground beef or steaks that are pretty fatty in style. Do I have one sometimes that doesn't have enough fat? Probably, but unless I just have a taste for it. But my wife really likes high fat. I mean, she's probably, 80-20 or, 85,
Yeah.
85%, or yeah, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, 80 probably for the fat content, not the protein part, right? She really likes the fat better. So, it just depends on kind of where you are, I would say. Dave, do you
Stop
do you
the
measure
Coke
any of
Zero.
that stuff now? You probably don't.
No,
Do you track any of that?
it's all
I don't.
intuitive. Yeah, I mean, uh, going if I go back like 8 months or something, like I was eating all the rendered fat from the ground beef that I was eating. And now I don't have any. I drain it all off, and I just because I feel good. I cook. I was cooking the scrambled eggs I was having in rendered fat for a while, and that kind of stopped as well. So it's just kind of how I'm feeling, and yeah,
Yeah.
nothing,
And
no
like I said, the first
particular. Mm.
the first 6 months, like the sticks of butter that are more like the rectangles, not the little squares. Like I would have half of one of those a day when I was losing the most weight, when I was losing that over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And it slowly went down to nothing, where now it's so rare. Like it's rare that I have even like today, because I've been doing so much lamb recently, which has been working. And it's not really fatty. It's not that fatty. And I haven't felt like I needed to add fat though either. That's the good thing. I actually get a good feeling after it, kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's the whole key. It's just, unfortunately we can always say, don't overeat, don't undereat. How much it just, each one of us is individual and where we are in the journey. That's how I feel about it.
And in the beginning, I tracked that stuff much more. Like I used to count carbs, years ago. I have no clue how many carbs, not still a lot, but more than I was, but I don't know. People do ask me from time to time, how much protein, how much fat, how many I'm clueless, but I wasn't in the beginning. It took a long time to get to where I am today. So in the beginning, it may be really important to track those kind of things and to see how much fat you're doing. How do you feel? Cut it back, add it in. Those types of things matter. But it's just like you've learned, I mean, both of you guys, what bothers you, what doesn't bother you. My wife learned raw tomatoes bother her, but not if they've been canned in salsa, right? And so all of that stuff you kind of discover, but you get a year, 2, 3 years in, your body gets sorted out. You've learned what bothers you, what doesn't, and you just kind of can be like a normal, every other mammal on the planet, right? They don't track any of that stuff. They eat what they have a taste for. They go to the salt lick if they want some salt, and life goes on, right? But you can't come right out of Mickey D's every 3 times a day and just think, well, I'll just eat the taste, right? Well, that's probably a bad plan.
Well, I think also when I look at a chunk of meat, I've got a good idea what it is from what it weighs and what I'm having. Like I said, I taught scuba for a long time, for 15 years of my life. And if any of you have scuba dove, I should even know how to say it. Anyway, dove, what a tank weighs when it has air in it or not. Like I got so used to hauling tanks on and off a boat full. If a tank was partially used, I could literally tell you, like, yeah, there's probably about 1,700 to 2,000 pounds of air in there. I mean, I got so accurate at lifting a tank and being able to feel it. Just like anybody who does a job for so long, you could get so accurate at what it really is. And I think after a while, when you look at your meat, like I can just look at it and go, I'm this hungry, I'm going to have this much. And it almost hits me perfect. Do you guys notice that? That, I don't need to overmake it or undermake it. I usually can hit it spot on.
I don't, because my wife cooks for me, but she hits it pretty well. So
that's good though. But I mean, you have an idea when you're eating how much you're probably going to eat though, don't you? I mean, you know if you're hungry, really hungry.
You can look at it and say, I mean, I can look at what she's made. Like, if she scrambles eggs, puts it, sometimes it'd be like, okay, I can't eat all that, right? Or, usually it's not, that's not enough. Usually, she will have made a lot. And so it's like, no, that's too much, right? You just get to where you know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the food is great. It tastes good. It's a natural. So yeah, I think so. I think also that's like, those responses that you need, like the baby's milk and queso morphine being so addictive, so they need to have it. I think there is that point that we need to have that to eat it, or that would be true. I always think, man, if our bodies were set up so you didn't have to eat, you wouldn't need like to ever go to the restroom. So your house wouldn't have bathrooms and you wouldn't have to have a kitchen. That would totally change. And if you never had to sleep, you would never have bed. Wouldn't it be, you know what I mean? I don't know if you guys are that weird, but it's just like, what would your house be like? Because there would be no bathrooms, no kitchen, no shopping, no grocery stores, no reason for any of this. But that's, my view on I guess, a creationist, that everything was designed for that purpose. You know, that's why some things are good. And that's like the senses. That's why it smells so good.
Yeah.
Too.
You ever taste it bad, we wouldn't eat it.
No, but people
Well,
do though. But
we
they feed
might
babies
still,
little
but, you know,
spinach and junk,
depending
and
on.
you're like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
you
true.
watch a baby eating, and they're just like, eat it
And
They'll try
anyway,
and
and you keep
convince you to
shoving
eat
the food.
broccoli.
yeah, exactly. Hey, and we are at 56 minutes, and so I only have just a
Yeah,
few minutes
yeah,
left. I
hard.
think Dave also had a hard break at about an hour, so
Yeah.
I have to go cut some wood. So I hate paying the electric company. My wife hates it even more than me. So I've got to get some wood in the fire this
Well,
evening.
you don't have to, but you should.
I don't have to because I just run the heat. It's just that you know, it's like everything else in life. It's much easier just to turn the thermostat up until the bill comes, right? And so,
Right.
you know, it's great to just go and eat some sugar cookies and some pizza, but you do pay the price at some point, right? So
Yeah.
you gotta make those decisions.
I know the hippo thing has me curious too.
You know, I
I
heard
want
a
a
song.
hippopotamus for
Yeah,
Christmas
yeah,
song pops in my
exactly.
head.
Yeah.
Here's that flavored mineral water. It's falling. I can't get. See, like, I didn't mind the Kirkland ones, but even the flavoring triggers me. I like plain. I just like the plain. I like the plain ones better anyway. But they were out of the plain ones for so long, but it's back in stock.
Mm.
I don't do bottled water. I have like one of those like Berkey filters, those big silver things that they kind of are like a hippie thing, I guess. I'm not a hippie, but hippies always have them. That's what, you know.
Yeah. So
I don't know. With
Yeah.
that hair getting much longer, Chad, you know,
I know my
you're
hair
getting
has
into
gotten really,
oh,
oh, you weren't
haven't
on.
made videos.
We were on a little bit sooner before you jumped on, before we came on, Dave. And I was telling Chad, I just got a haircut 2 days ago, and I hadn't had a haircut in so long. My hair had probably been longer than it had been. My wife asked me when I was going to do another video. I said, not till I get a haircut. And like my hair was so long, my hat almost wouldn't fit. Somebody said, yeah, we shoved the veggies down our kid's throat. By the way, so I have 3 of our daughters all have fairly young babies right now. And one of them, she's just starting to eat some stuff. Well, a fair amount of stuff. But it is true, like she just does not like vegetables very much, and my daughter doesn't really give her a whole lot, but she will immediately take like pieces of meat, gnaw on beef jerky, suck on ribs with, you know, a little bit of barbecue sauce on them. She does that all the time. But she has not much taste for veggies whatsoever. I mean, you almost have to like trick them into eating them. Not all kids, but you know, we do develop a palate after a while. But it's just a natural thing for her to like the very first little bit of you know, a little bit of gnawed up meat that she just got a, you know, couple little teeth coming in. Oh, she will immediately just eat that like nothing, right?
I think on this thing, I'm going to hit this really quickly, but I don't really know or do not know what I'm doing. And then this thing, even here, this no tracking, just intuition, how it tastes and satiation. I think that's the whole key. None of us know what we're doing because there is no thing to do. It's all individual. We all have to find our own journey, our own path, how much works, what works for me with what I do. I'm pretty sure too, like the terminology of like a basal metabolic rate, you know, your sustained, what your body burns, how efficient you are through the day. You can measure that in calories. So if I'm burning 1,500 calories a day in just my base state and somebody else is burning 1,000, I don't care about calories in, calorie out. We've talked about that. We care about nutrition. So I might need more steak than somebody else based on what my body burns on that base level. Me doing a 3-mile hike in the hard desert here where I'm gaining 700 feet elevation, which isn't huge, but the short bursts are way more than somebody on a treadmill or just walking on pavement, is going to require maybe an extra 400 calories. So even too, I think it's not even worrying about what we do. I think it's also important with that we just know how we feel and just kind of use our gut, literally our gut judgment of how we feel satiated or not, and kind of go with it. That's been my biggest take.
Yeah, I think that's probably what most people do once they get to a point to where they have been in, long enough that their body can at least get somewhat sorted out, right? That's probably the key is just you have to be, in the beginning, I there is some value to watching what you eat and tracking some of those kind of things. But I think eventually the body just kind of knows what it wants, right? So no other animals track macros, right? They don't.
On
this, nobody does.
Native
no animal
Americans,
does that. It's just us.
No, and the colonists.
Yeah,
on my site, I had that one thing about Lewis and Clark and how they crave fatty meat.
Yeah, they crave fatty meat. They crave fatty meat
because in their journals they recorded it so many times about desiring fatty meat, and they got whale lard at one time and how much they liked it. And it was interesting that it was such an important thing that they put it down in their journals so many times.
I'm getting the signal. I'm getting this signal, right? And you cannot see the signal coming, but I can see it, like, tapping the watch, looking and smiling and like tapping the watch.
Yeah, I've got to bounce too, guys.
Yeah. Anyway,
it was
I'm just going to flip through these questions to make sure
being together again, because it's been, like I said, it seems like it's been 2 months.
We kind of missed like one of you, then one of you.
Yeah. See, that's it. But back and forth, and so it was great for us all to be on together, and greatly appreciate everybody jumping in. I know that Chad is
showing up.
Chad is scrolling diligently through these questions to see if there's anything popping up in there. But yeah, I really have to jump because I have about 45 minutes of daylight left before it's pitch black.
Headlamps.
Headlamps. It's not the way you want to be doing it with a headlamp. Anyway, it has been great. Chad, you're Christmas and New Year's are gonna hit on the next 2 Mondays. We're not sure exactly what we're gonna do yet, but we're gonna talk about that.
I'll send out an email and we'll kind of figure out if we want to do like an after Christmas, how we did interim thing, maybe would be fun to do.
Yes. So you just shoot me some emails. We'll schedule that up and we'll do whatever.
Yeah.
So and if I don't talk to you guys, I hope you have a great Christmas. You guys watching, great Christmas, good New Year. Be safe during the holiday. We're looking forward to it. It's always a great time of year for us. So
thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
All right.